Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, we're going to continue our look at science fiction games, and in this episode, we are moving into the post-apocalyptic subgenre of science fiction, and we will be taking a look at Wreckland Run, a game from Scott Almes and Renegade Games. Scott Almes did some work on some of the Tiny Epic games. So let's read a little bit about Wreckland Run. Wreckland Run is a solitaire-only game, so this is a solo-only game. Customize your ride and face off against many unique warlord bosses and their gangs of raiders, uncovering new content through a 7-chapter narrative campaign. Let's ride. So this is a game very much in the Mad Max vein. In this game, you will be taking the role of a driver, and there are 4 different drivers to choose from. You have Miller, Arson, Rudder, and Cuddles, and each one of those drivers has a certain unique ability that you can use during the game. And then along with your driver, you will be selecting a car, and there are 4 different cars to choose from. You have the Roadrunner, Hades Chariot, Rhino Hide, and Thunder Flash. And each one of these cars comes with a core with a certain amount of damage. And for instance, Thunder Flash here has an 8 damage core. If you ever take 8 damage, your car blows up and you lose the game. Each car also comes with a number of pre-installed weapons or items. In this case, Thunder Flash here would have a weird electric gun, a luck breaker, and a glass cannon. For this example here, I'm going to be using Roadrunner. Roadrunner comes with twin blasters, automatic reloader, and a lifeline. And then each of the cars also has 3 unique upgrades that you can spend scrap points on during your campaign to upgrade the pre-installed weapons on your car. So those are the 3 upgrade cards there for Roadrunner. And then we also have the upgrade cards here for the other cars here, such as Hades Helper or Phlegathon's Current, the Everything Gun, Best of Luck, the Fragile Ego, the Super Weird Gun, the Strong P, and the Siphon Horn. Along with the characters, the upgrades, and the car, you will also have a campaign book. And this campaign book will run you through 7 chapters. You have a little bit to read on each chapter, and then you will go into the rules for that chapter and then the page that you will use while you are playing that chapter. And that'll have any special rules for the boss of that chapter. It'll tell you the certain things you do to set up each round. Each round is divided into 2 different sections. You have a wreckage phase and a run phase. The wreckage phase is where you will spend your scrap points to upgrade and repair your car. And then the run phase is when you will be attacked and you will attack back against enemies that are trying to swarm your vehicle while you are heading down the canyon highways. During the wreckage phase and the run phase, you will also have a place where you will have to sometimes place bad dice to make things happen to you. Because at its core, Wreckland Run is a dice placement kind of resource management puzzle game with a post-apocalyptic theme. This is a game that I was much more excited about the prospects of playing than I ended up being actually playing the game. It's okay. I think some people might like this a little bit more than I did. I have some issues with it, but let's talk a little bit about the overview so you can get an idea of what this game is all about. So at the beginning of the game, you will choose the chapter that you were on. I'm going to show a little bit from chapter 2 because each chapter comes with an envelope of cards that you can unlock. Kind of a small little legacy style thing where you will open up these envelopes to reveal different cards. Most of these envelopes just contain additional enemies and bosses, but some of the chapters have some more interesting things going on. And chapter 2 is one of those chapters, so I want to show that. So this review will have some light spoilers, but there's not really a lot to spoil about this game. But as the game progresses, you will be adding more enemies to your enemy deck. This is one of the things that progresses from chapter to chapter. And you will also be adding more cards to your parts deck. So those are the two main decks that get added to as the campaign goes on. Each of the chapters will have a boss, and the boss will come out on round 3, and you will have to defeat that boss in order to win the chapter. And then most of the chapters will come with additional enemy cards, and these enemy cards will get shuffled in to your enemy deck. And so now my base enemy deck contains the enemies from chapter 1 and chapter 2. And then some of the chapters will also come with parts, but chapter 2 does not come with any parts. So right now my part deck has all of my basic parts plus the parts that I opened during chapter 1. Chapter 2, however, does contain some things that are a little bit different. So you also have 4 skill cards that you can choose one of to upgrade your hero. And I believe that happens twice during the campaign. So at the end of the campaign, by chapter 6 or so, your hero, your driver, will have 2 additional abilities that they can spend dice on in order to activate those parts or those skills. And then chapter 2 contains one of the more interesting changes to the game, and that introduces a deck of canyon cards that simulate the chase going through different canyon routes and different canyon highways. And each time you draw one of the canyon cards, you have a choice to do certain things. You have 2 choices that you can choose from on each of the canyon cards. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of a cool little change up. And I believe you only use this deck with chapter 2. But you will keep track of where you are in each round. At the beginning of the game, you start in your wreckage phase. And depending on the difficulty that you have chosen, I usually play on normal. You will start off with a couple scrap cards. And these scrap cards, you can use the dice to buy things or to repair things that are on your car. And then you will draw a certain number of parts cards. In this instance, we draw 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts cards. So these are all the parts that we can buy and install on our vehicle to empty slots. We have the Gamble Blaster, the Steel Rain, Sand Duster, Confetti Cannon, Rotary Cannon, and Sharing is Caring. And then you will take all 8 of the D6 that are included in the game, 5 white and 3 red. And you will roll those, and then you will use those dice. You will spend those dice to buy additional parts. If you had damage, you could use those dice to repair the damage. You can use red dice, but red dice are kind of bad dice. These represent the bad guys doing stuff to you, but you can spend those to heal, or you can spend those to upgrade your parts. However, when you spend it, you will have to press your luck a little bit and then re-roll that die and place it on the wreckage phase chart here. You might have no effect. Sometimes you might have to discard remaining parts, or sometimes you might have to place damage on your vehicle during this this wreckage phase. The red dice during the wreckage phase, they kind of represent volatile things that you are using to build the parts that are maybe unstable and they might explode. So you're going to spend all of your dice, or however many dice you want. You could also spend your scrap dice to buy different parts. And the parts will have certain totals that you have to meet. So to buy the Gamble Blaster, you have to spend dice that equal up to 13. To buy the Steel Rain, you can spend white or red dice, and it has to be a 3 of a kind. Any dice there. Sometimes you have to get straights. Sometimes you have to get pairs, and so on. And then you will just kind of build up your car and prepare for the battle phase. Now, some of the parts cards have barbed wire on one or more sides. And if you place those to where the barbed wire is on the outside of your car, that will allow you to do better ramming damage when you take a ramming move. So that's kind of cool too. You do want to think about how the barbed wire is on your car. After you've spent all of your dice to upgrade and to repair your car, then we move into the run phase. And this is the chase. This is the Fury Road part of the game. And each of the runs will show you how the enemy cars are placed around your car. In this instance here, we have 2 in front, 2 on the right, 2 in the rear, and 2 on the left. So that's 7 total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 2 enemy cards in the front. The enemy cards, they have a name. They have an amount of damage that they do to your parts or to your car, your core. They have a red die. So if you roll a 2 red, then this can trigger that card. And it will also trigger any other 2s that are out there. And then it also has a number of damage. Some enemies will also have shields, and shields negate a point of damage. Sometimes enemies will have things like explosions, where if they take a certain kind of damage, they will explode, doing damage to your car. There are different things that some of the enemies can do. But you'll place the cards around your car, and then we have all 7 around, and then we go into the run phase. Again, we will roll our dice. We'll roll all of your d6, and then you will have to spend a red die to trigger an enemy movement. If none of your red die match any of the numbers on the enemy cards, then you have to roll one for the run phase for the boss chart, and then you have to do the bad thing that the boss does to you. And then on each turn within the run phase, you can spend up to 3 white dice to trigger your actions on your cards, doing damage, preventing damage, triggering different actions. You could also spend your scrap points to trigger actions as you destroy enemy vehicles. If you perfectly destroy them without any excess damage, if you don't obliterate the car, then you can take that car and add it to your scrap pile. You can spend that scrap to do other actions. So keeping your scrap pile full is a really good way to have more actions that you can take on your turn. And then that scrap carries over to the other rounds in that chapter, so you can use the scrap to repair and to buy more items for your car. And basically each chapter, you're going to do the wreckage and run phase 3 times. On the final run phase, you will have a boss that you will have to defeat. If you defeat the boss before your car core takes its last damage, then you win the chapter. Then everything kind of gets cleared off and you progress to the next chapter. It's an okay game. There's quite a bit going on. There are a lot of choices to be made. However, those choices are dictated by the dice that you roll. So you have a combination of cards and dice. There are some ways to re-roll. There are some ways to change the dice. There are some ways to mitigate the luck, but not a lot. I've had some games where I've just rolled the right numbers and I've had great games, and I've had some games where that doesn't happen. And sometimes I like games like that. Sometimes I like games that are fun to lose when they are creative in the kinds of things that you have to deal with. This game, I found it a little frustrating when I wasn't hitting the target numbers that I needed. And I think that has to do with just the fact that this is the whole game. There's not really a lot to do outside of placing the dice. And so if you just can't place the dice, if you can't trigger the things you need to trigger, then there's not a lot going on in the game. As your car takes damage, as different parts take their last point of damage, each part has a certain number of hit points that they can take. That section gets destroyed. And then you can't use that part or that space on your car until that destruction is repaired. It is kind of fun to when you are at that last moment in a battle and your car is just kind of on fire. You can imagine that in your mind, flames coming out, black smoke spewing out from the destruction. And you do throw that last 6 or that last 4 that you need to do that last point of damage on an enemy or a boss. That can be exciting, but those exciting moments just don't happen enough. I like dice games when every time you roll the dice, you're kind of tense. You're like, oh man, what's going to happen? I just didn't feel that in this game. I didn't feel a lot of the excitement. This is a game that's all about these kind of violent road chases like Fury Road. And Fury Road is one of the best action movies ever made. It's so tense. It's so fun. And you're just kind of like gripping your seat while you're watching the movie. And I wanted to feel something like that in this game, but I just didn't. It was kind of My experience was kind of a flat line with a few little bumps of excitement. For some reason, it just wasn't hitting that level of excitement that I would want in this kind of game, and I'm not sure why. One thing that I don't like about the game is the fact that they made it a campaign. This is a perfect example of a game just feeling like the campaign is shoehorned in, it's shoved in. There is no reason for a small box game like this to be a campaign game. The story is not very compelling. It's okay. It's not poorly written, but it's not something that I really want to take the time to read in between each chapter. Doesn't feel like there is a lot of progress through the campaign. When your driver gets to level up and choose a new skill, they don't get to use that skill. You still have to spend one of your dice on that skill, thus using up one of your actions during that phase. If each skill was a bonus action, you would feel like your driver was progressing a little bit more. I think this game would be much better if it was not a campaign game and it was more of just a roguelite game, similar to something like Mini Rogue or Unbroken or Rogue Dungeon. In these games, you take all of the stuff that you have and you shuffle your decks, and then you've seeded your game. And then you just play to see how far you can get, if you can get to the end. I would like Wreckland Run a lot more if everything was just unlocked from the beginning. All of the cards, you just had decks of cards. You shuffled everything together. You had your boss deck, your enemy deck, your parts deck, your skills deck, your drivers, and your cars. You shuffle each deck, and then you just kind of see how far you can get, how many bosses you can beat along the way, with pauses to do your repairs and to upgrade your character and things like that. Maybe using the canyon cards for the whole thing to kind of drive the game. I think the makings of a pretty cool game are here, but I would kind of just completely redevelop the game into being something else. As it stands, it is okay. And I think some people might really like Wreckland Run, especially if you like this kind of dice placement, action selection, a little bit of a puzzle game, triggering one move to trigger another move to maybe get that piece of scrap that you needed so you could fire off at your last cannon, and making combinations like that. Barely eking through at that last moment might be kind of fun for some people. For me, the game fell a little flat. I also wish that it was in a smaller box. It's kind of in this weird kind of medium-sized box. It feels like a small game. And I think if maybe it was in a box maybe the size of Unbroken, or maybe even just small enough here, kind of like the size of Rogue Dungeon, I might keep it because it would easily fit in my small box cubby. But right now it's kind of at this weird kind of awkward size where it doesn't quite fit in my small box cubby. But I don't think I want to keep it on my shelf. I don't like it enough to keep it on another shelf. So I am probably going to let this one go. But I did want to bring it to your attention. I know that post-apocalyptic themes are fun, but they are few and far between. We don't get a lot of them, and I wish this one was better. I wish I liked this one more. So, all right, you guys. Well, hope you enjoyed taking a look at Wreckland Run, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.